Hello and welcome to the third video in the installment for the platform bed. And in this one I'm doing the footboard, which all it does is just kind of caps off the end of the main bed. And I made it so this is one of the main pieces. So this piece of course attaches to the bed, but it doesn't break down itself. And of course it matches the same design as the headboard, so they look like they match. So let's go into making it. The way that, if you remember the headboard video, I used a frame and I used these same boards to attach to the frame, but instead of doing that, I didn't want any thickness, so I just used it's not a 3/4 inch piece of plywood, it's a little less than that, but I just attached it to the piece of plywood. It had a little bit of a bow in it, and so here I'm nailing it to it. So it had a little bit of a bow, so I put some weights on it, and you'll see that hopefully soon. So I weighted it down to hopefully get it straight. Let it all dry, and then took the weights off and sanded the heck out of it. Actually, I didn't sand it that much. It's still kind of it's more of a rough sanding. So I made a big mistake. I was cutting these out, and I bought a big long piece so that I can essentially wrap this, right? And when I came to measure where to cut the other end of this off, so I put it at the corner. Too short. So I would have rather spliced like on the end or something, but I have to do something. So let's look at what I think I'm going to do a tongue and groove splice. So I think I'm going to try, I bought this router bit set on Amazon for doing cabinets. I did it for my mother-in-law's cabinets, and it works really well, but because of this 1/2 inch shaft or this 1/4 inch shaft, I don't know, and my router doesn't have variable speed, so it feels like it's gonna like come out and get me and like break off and kill me every time I use it. I have a genuine fear of, and this guy likes to throw. So I'm gonna try it anyways because they do fit together. Let's see what happens if I can do a splice with that. So here I'm trying to fix my mistake, make it a tongue and groove. That was the tongue. Here's the groove, and they fit pretty good. And so let's see. Now I'm gonna glue them up together. Try to get them as straight as possible, obviously, but I probably should have used a straight edge on the back end of it. It probably would have worked out. It worked out pretty good though. So this is the splice. I probably should have put a straight edge on this edge, but it looks pretty straight for the most part. I guess I get a short straight edge. See how it looks. Doesn't look bad at all, or I mean, it looks perfect from this distance. Anyways, now I'm gonna cut. This is the thickness it needs to be, so I'll just cut it. Continue on, but feels pretty solid. You'll still see it. Oh well, that's what you get for making a mistake. So here I have to trim what the board that I just put a spline in. Of course, we got to stain this before we move on to the next step, because there's two colors of stain. The trim is going to be stained the darker color. Anyway, so here I'm just putting these edges on with glue. I'm gluing it to the plywood on underneath, and you can see that there's a gap because those boards weren't long enough to fit. But I guess with the plywood behind it, it was okay. So they kind of float in the middle. And this last top cap, that's the piece I just splined together with the tongue and groove, and it worked out pretty good. So I guess most of woodworking is figuring out how to fix the mistakes you made. And then here I'm rounding the edge of the top trim so that it's hard to, you can't do it with a router later on. You have to do it now. And I should have stained them right after this step, but I didn't. It would have turned out better, I think, or it would have been easier with especially when you do two types of stain, where the two parts meet. You want to stain separately and then put them together. I learned that, I guess, the hard way with this piece, because I thought that I could get away with it by just taping it. So here I'm just putting that top trim on, glue and brad nails, 18 gauge brad nails, which is what everything has had. And I'm also gluing it to the internal board. Not completely, just partially. I don't know if it'll restrict movement. I guess we'll find out over time. Experiment. Because I'm really not I'm not making any allowance for wood movement. And then after I do this, I use wood putty and putty up all the nail holes and cracks, those edge cracks, which the 45 degree. So here a nail poked through my edge, so I didn't know what to do. So what I did here, this shows you what I did. I took a Dremel and I cut it out and made a hole without any nail part of the nail, and then I took wood filler, and it worked pretty good. It's not the best, I guess, but if you're painting it, this is probably the best way to fix this mistake, is to just fill the hole, cut it, make a hole, and then fill it. Anyways, then I have to sand all the filler out, and now I route the final edges. Again, the internal edge I didn't route. I routed earlier, but these external edges I can route now and put a smooth curve on it. Of course, now I'm going to stain it, and so I have to cover up the middle part. Like I said, it would have been easier and it would have worked better if I would have stained it, at least done an initial stain on the edges. But anyways, here's the second coat of stain, and now I'm polyurethaning it. This is just a oil-based polyurethane that I used on everything else so far, and I use it for everything else in the future as well for this bed. 2 coats. I only show one, but I put 2 coats on it. So now I'm installing it, and here's the main bed, and I've got to make sure that these are connected together. So I'm putting bolts. I'm putting 3 bolts in the middle just to keep the 2 halves together. And this is important before I attach the footboard, so that the footboard's attached at the right spot. So here's just me. And I like this slot in the middle of the bed. I didn't plan it, but I like it. and I'll show you later, but essentially I made it so you could stick stuff down there and kind of hide things, hide valuables. But anyway, so here I'm just making sure that they're attached. They weren't attached before. And then I'm going to move on and attach the headboard right here, or the footboard. This is the footboard. So I'm putting 2 screws, one on either side. So here I have to attach it at the best spot. So I picked the thickest spot on the footboard and the easiest to get to. I mean, this is all thinking that I'm going to move and this is going to be hard in the future, so I want to make it as easy as possible. And originally I was thinking of using 4 bolts, but I used 2 bolts, and they're 5/16, and they were big enough, or they did what it needed to be done. So I just used 2 of them. But essentially I drill all the way through to know where the hole goes, so that it matches. So there's my hole that I drilled from the other side, and I'm going to put a threaded insert. And so here I'm measuring the thickness of the threaded insert so I don't drill all the way through my piece, my footboard. I don't want you to see this, so I'm using tape to make sure I don't drill all the way through to the right depth. And then I just drill out that depth. And then for some reason, so you're supposed to just use an Allen wrench, which I did. I have an Allen wrench on a socket, and this sucker, it was just not going in. I had the hardest time. I eventually did obviously get it in, because you'll see in a minute. Finally, it's going in. No, I don't think it went in this time. So I drill a little bit more, kind of wiggle it around to make the hole a little bit bigger, just at the top of it. Now it's going. But before I put it all the way in, I want to make the wood, I use Loctite, or I use, that's cyanoacrylate CA glue. So I'm trying to get the wood fibers to get harder around the screw threads. That's kind of my thought process, to hopefully just make sure that threaded insert stays there longer. So I did it on both sides. See, there's the bolt that I used, and I didn't show, but I did the same thing on the other side. So here I'm putting in this side, and then I'm going to show you putting in the other side. And if you remember, well, here, let's go and, so here I'm ratcheting it down. I'm not going to super tighten it right now, just kind of get it close. Now, if you remember, in the beginning, there was a little bit of a bow to it, and I didn't get it all out. I got some of it out, but not all of it. So here it is. And I found that if I clamp it, I can pull it to that end and then bolt it in, and then it's straight. So that's what I do. I use my bar clamp and just get it close enough for the bolt. When I drilled the hole, I had to use 2 bar clamps to pull it tight completely, and then drill the hole. And then now I'm putting the bolt in, so now I have to bolt or clamp it closed again. So now it's close enough. Put the bolt in, and then use the ratchet to tighten it all the way. And you can kind of see it closing in, but it gets all the way there. Now I'm done. So there it is installed, 2 bolts. So when I take it off, I'm hoping over the years it just kind of relaxes itself and stays straight. But that's it. That's the footboard. And you can tell it matches the headboard. So make sure you catch the other videos I'm making, and thanks for watching this one.